It wasn't a speech. It wasn't a briefing. It was a sudden, brutal pause in the machinery of the Crown Prince William, stepping in front of King Charles like a locked gate, stopping him mid-stride before a decision could be made irreversible. No cameras invited. No prepared lines. Just one heir blocking the monarch in real time. And the shock isn't that Charles wanted to gift part of the crown estate to Beatrice, it's why William believed he had to stop it. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Because in that one frozen second, the monarchy stopped behaving like a polished institution and revealed itself as something raw and human, an old system held together by discipline, fear, and unspoken rules. William didn't raise his voice. He didn't make a scene. He did something far more dangerous. He used his body as a barrier. A silent veto. A physical line in the air that said, no further. And for a family trained to turn every emotion into etiquette, that kind of move isn't impulsive. It's the last option. The final alarm. The block wasn't theatrical. It was precise. William stepped in before a private meeting or a signing could proceed, as if he knew there was a point beyond which the decision would become impossible to reverse. Not because Charles would refuse to change his mind, because the moment certain people were told, certain papers moved, certain promises made, the entire machine would lock into place. That's the real terror of royal decisions. Once they enter the system, they don't just become policy, they become precedent. And William acted like he was stopping a blade from dropping, not arguing over a family favour. Then came the phrase that turned the air heavy: crown estate. That isn't a word used casually in private royal life. It carries weight that lands like a warning. This isn't jewellery passed down quietly. This isn't a title that can be reshuffled later. It's institutional power. It's the backbone of the monarchy's public credibility, the thing that separates family wealth from national framework. When that phrase entered the room, it triggered a panic that no one could hide, because everyone understood what it would look like if the crown appeared to be gifting its own foundations away. And then Beatrice's name struck like a match near gasoline, not because she's weak, not because she's irrelevant, but because her name, in this context, suggests something deeper than generosity. Why her? Why now? Why this asset? Questions like that don't drift harmlessly in palace air, they rip it open. They force people to imagine motives they don't want to imagine. A settlement, a bargain, a protection plan, or worse, a move designed to lock in loyalty before something breaks. William's reaction made it clear he didn't see this as kindness. He saw it as a trigger. The corridor around them didn't erupt. It froze. Staff became statues, because the body language between an heir and a king tells the truth faster than any official statement ever could. Security hesitated, not because they didn't know who to obey, but because obedience in moments like this isn't just about rank, it's about what the institution needs to survive. In that hesitation, hierarchy became visible. William wasn't merely a son. He was the future, standing in front of the present, trying to stop a decision that could stain everything that comes next. And somewhere inside that silence, a first whispered warning slid through like a blade. This can't be done. Or maybe, not like this. Words chosen carefully, because no one wanted to say the real sentence out loud. The real sentence would have sounded like treason inside those walls. The real sentence would have admitted that the king was about to cross a line that others believed even he wasn't allowed to cross. And William's face, tight, urgent, controlled, suggested he understood the danger in a way Charles either didn't or refused to acknowledge. Because Charles looked resolute, not confused, not uncertain. Resolute in the way a man looks when he believes he's correcting an old injustice, or paying a debt no one else understands, or making one decisive move before time runs out. That contrast is what made the moment so frightening. William looked desperate, like he was preventing a catastrophe. Charles looked committed, like he was prepared to accept the fallout. And in that clash, you could feel a terrifying possibility forming. This wasn't only about Beatrice. This was about a pressure point inside the monarchy that had finally snapped. But once you accept William would never risk defying Charles publicly without a deeper reason, you're forced to ask what kind of pressure was driving the king to make a gift that could shake the monarchy's foundations. To the public, it sounds almost kind, an aging king gifting security to a granddaughter of the queen. But inside the palace, crown estate isn't generosity. It's the spine of royal authority. It's the difference between family wealth and national machinery. So when Charles moves to gift any part of it to Beatrice, the court doesn't hear love, they hear risk. And when William blocks it, he's not just protecting tradition, he's protecting the future of the throne. Because the crown estate is not a private purse. It's not a sentimental inheritance you can pass down to ease a family worry. It is a symbol that holds the entire monarchy upright in the eyes of the public, proof that the institution is bigger than personal feelings, bigger than family favoritism, bigger than private bargains. That's why the mere idea of gifting anything connected to it lands like a rupture. It threatens legitimacy. It threatens governance optics. It threatens the fragile trust that keeps people accepting royal power as something structured, not something improvised. And that's where the danger becomes sharp enough to cut. Even the attempt hints at a boundary being tested. Not necessarily in a courtroom sense, though legal shadows always hover, but in an institutional sense. The palace survives because it convinces the world it has limits, rules, restraint. It presents itself as an engine that cannot be hijacked by emotion. So when a monarch tries to move a piece of that engine toward a family member, it starts to look less like stability and more like entitlement dressed in tradition. It tells everyone watching, even silently, that the monarchy might be willing to rewrite its own untouchable lines if the right person asks at the right time. And once a line moves, it doesn't simply return to where it was. That's the part William understands in his bones. A gift becomes precedent. Today it's Beatrice, tomorrow it's someone else. And the palace can insist this is a one-off, but the public remembers patterns, not excuses. A precedent is a seed. It grows into expectation. It grows into entitlement. It grows into quiet internal demands from other branches, each one convinced they deserve the same treatment, each one capable of making trouble if refused. That's how institutions rot, not with one scandal, but with repeated small compromises that teach people the rules are flexible. This is why William's fear isn't petty or personal. It's structural. He knows the future of the throne isn't secured by gestures of generosity, it's secured by consistency, by the sense that the monarchy doesn't sell pieces of itself off when pressure rises. Because the palace's deeper worry isn't just what happens inside the family, it's what happens outside it, in the public mind, where stories harden into beliefs. And the ugliest belief of all would be this: the monarchy is selling itself off. Not a literal sale, perhaps, but a symbolic one. A perception that royal power can be traded to solve private problems. And that perception would be catastrophic. It would turn every charitable gesture suspicious, every financial decision questioned, every palace silence interpreted as concealment. It would make the institution look less like a national constant and more like a desperate family shifting assets to protect its own. It would ignite outrage, investigations, political pressure, and the kind of headlines that don't fade. Even if nothing illegal happened, the damage would be the same. Because legitimacy is not just a legal status, it's a feeling, and once that feeling collapses, no amount of protocol can rebuild it quickly. Which brings us back to the most unsettling detail of all, Beatrice as the chosen recipient. Her name doesn't enter this story gently, it enters like lightning. Because if she's the one being placed near something so sensitive, it suggests a hidden bargain, a quiet settlement, a protection plan, or a debt being repaid in the only currency that still matters behind palace walls: access, security, and long-term positioning. And that's why William's block carries the weight of an emergency. He isn't saying Beatrice doesn't deserve stability. He's saying the crown cannot afford to make stability look like a private exchange. And if this gift was really a gamble with the crown's credibility, the next question becomes far darker. What was Charles trying to fix or repay by putting Beatrice at the center of it? Beatrice isn't usually the headline in royal power struggles. That's what makes this so dangerous. When her name suddenly appears beside the crown estate, it doesn't feel random, it feels like a signal. A move designed to protect someone, silence someone, or secure someone's future before a storm hits. And if William blocked Charles in the moment, it suggests he believed Beatrice wasn't just receiving a gift, she was becoming a pawn in a deal the public could never be allowed to see. Because publicly, Beatrice is the safe face. Polite. Controlled. Non-threatening. The kind of royal the palace can place in a room and expect calm. But privately, she is tied to a branch of the family that carries weight the palace never stops calculating: the York shadow, the old wounds, the reputational risk that never fully fades. And in a monarchy that survives on perception, the York name isn't just history, it's a permanent risk assessment. So when Beatrice is suddenly positioned near something as sensitive as the crown estate, it sends a message inside the institution. Someone is trying to stabilize a problem before it becomes unmanageable. That's where the possibilities turn dark. Why Beatrice? Loyalty is one answer. Leverage is another. A quiet settlement is the most unsettling. Because the palace doesn't always solve problems by confronting them. Sometimes it solves them by redistributing security, influence, and silence, giving someone enough stability that they don't feel tempted to speak, or giving them a future so protected they stop asking questions about the past. If Charles was offering something that looks like a gift, it may have been designed to close a chapter that refused to stay shut. And William, standing in the way, clearly believed the price of that closure would be catastrophic. And then you feel the emotional conflict tearing through the air like a hidden fracture. William wasn't raised to argue with the king in public. He was raised to absorb pressure, swallow emotion, and smile through the storm. So when he blocks Charles, when he draws a line with his own body, it signals something rare: desperation. A moment where the heir decides the cost of silence is worse than the cost of conflict. Because William isn't just stopping a gift, he's stopping a chain reaction that could change the monarchy he's destined to inherit. His calculation is brutal and cold, even if it's powered by fear. Defy now, prevent irreversible damage later. That's the logic of survival when you are the future of the institution. Because once a decision like this enters motion, once Beatrice becomes linked, publicly or privately, to crown estate influence, the monarchy can never fully untangle. People will interpret it as favoritism, as a payoff, as weakness, as panic. And panic is contagious. Panic spreads through courts, through media, through politics, through public trust. William isn't protecting himself. He's protecting stability, the one thing the monarchy cannot live without. Charles's response only sharpens the tragedy. Not fury, something worse. Firmness. Pride. A hint of heartbreak, like a man convinced he is doing the right thing for reasons he cannot fully explain. The kind of heartbreak that suggests this isn't only strategic, it's personal. Like Charles believes he is correcting something old, paying something back, rescuing someone before the public can see the collapse. And William's refusal is a direct insult to that belief. In that moment, the heir versus monarch dynamic flips. Who is really in control, the king with authority, or the heir with the future? Around them, the palace feels it instantly. Staff don't need details to sense the shape of the disaster. They sense a civil war forming not with shouting, but with glances, silences, messages sent from pocket screens, and doors that suddenly feel like lines of defense. Because if William blocks Charles here, it means he's willing to escalate privately too. It means he has drawn a boundary that might force Charles to choose, back down quietly, or push forward and risk a public fracture that will never heal. And that's why Beatrice becomes so central, even without saying a word. She is the pivot point, either the bridge Charles is trying to build, or the bargaining chip someone else is using to pull him into a dangerous decision. And if Beatrice is the bridge Charles is trying to build, then someone in the palace believes the real threat isn't the gift itself, it's what the gift is meant to cover up. But the most chilling part isn't William's defiance, it's what it implies, that Charles was ready to do this fast, before anyone could stop him. Royal power doesn't move with public announcements, it moves with quiet signatures and invisible consent. That's why this moment reeks of something already in motion. If Charles was prepared to gift Crown Estate assets, there was likely a paper trail, briefings, legal opinions, private approvals. And if William blocked him at the last second, it suggests he'd discovered the plan too late. Or he'd just uncovered who was pushing it through behind his back. Because nothing this big happens by accident. Not in a palace where every movement is logged, every meeting is scheduled, every casual conversation has an audience of advisors who remember everything. There is always an approval chain, quiet gatekeepers who decide what reaches the king, what gets delayed, what gets softened, and what gets pushed through at speed. And the word speed is where the fear lives. Rumors of a rushed process don't just suggest urgency, they suggest scrutiny was being avoided. The faster it happens, the harder it is to stop. The harder it is to reverse. The harder it is for anyone to ask the question that would shatter the whole plan: who benefits from this? Because secrecy always has a beneficiary. If a gift is truly harmless, you don't need to hide it. You don't need to move it quietly. You don't need to wrap it in careful language and closed-door urgency. But if the Crown Estate is involved, if even the perception of its involvement is involved, then secrecy becomes a weapon. It buys time. It limits witnesses. It keeps the story clean until the point of no return. William's block in that context doesn't feel like a sudden act of defiance. It feels like the moment an heir finally stepped into a moving train and pulled the emergency brake before it reached the cliff. And then you arrive at the unsettling possibility William can't say out loud. Someone may have been manipulating Charles, not with crude pressure, not with threats, but with emotion and timing. A carefully framed narrative. A "this is the right thing" argument delivered at the right moment, when a king is vulnerable to legacy, to guilt, to family obligation. Because manipulation at that level doesn't look like force. It looks like persuasion dressed as compassion. It looks like a private advisor saying, "You can fix this. You can protect her. You can settle this before it becomes worse." And if William sensed that, his fear wouldn't be only about the gift. It would be about the king being steered into a decision that would stain the monarchy for years. That's where the miscommunication weapon becomes lethal. In the palace, you don't need to lie to create chaos, you only need to give different people different versions of truth. Tell Charles the heir understands. Tell William the king has already decided. Tell staff it's procedural. Tell courtiers it's personal. The result is the same. Everyone moves forward, each believing someone else has already consented. And when William blocks the action in real time, it exposes the possibility that consent was never unanimous. Maybe it was never even real. Then the palace reacts the way it always reacts when reality becomes dangerous. It starts editing the story. The monarchy can survive scandal. What it can't survive is a scandal it doesn't control. Within minutes, the confrontation wasn't treated like family tension, it was treated like a narrative emergency. Calls were placed. Language was chosen with surgical care. Because if the public hears William blocked Charles from gifting the Crown Estate, they don't think private disagreement. They think cover-up. And the palace knows once that word lands, it never truly leaves. So the misunderstanding cover story appears almost instantly: renovations, scheduling, procedural confusion, anything that makes it sound boring instead of explosive. And the speed reveals fear. Rapid spin means high stakes. You can feel the internal blame forming behind closed doors. Who let William find out? Who let Charles proceed? Who didn't manage the timing? Who failed to keep the air calm? Who failed to keep the king contained? Because in a crisis like this, somebody always gets sacrificed, if not publicly, then privately. And William's dilemma sharpens into a knife. Deny it and look weak, like he tried and failed. Confirm it and ignite war, because confirmation forces questions the palace can't answer. Charles's silence becomes its own strategy, because explaining would confirm there's something to explain. Silence is the oldest royal tool, strong enough to hold the wall up for a while, but never strong enough to stop the pressure building behind it. And once the palace starts calling it a misunderstanding, you realize this isn't just a disagreement, it's a crisis being managed before it becomes a scandal. But just when the palace thought it could contain it, one detail refused to disappear, because it suggested Charles wasn't acting out of kindness, he was acting under pressure. Here's what makes this story terrifying. Kings don't rush into unprecedented gifts unless something is squeezing them from the inside. Charles is a man who knows legacy, who knows history, who knows the cost of scandal, and yet he was willing to move fast. That suggests he wasn't simply being generous. He was trying to solve something, repay something, prevent something, and if Beatrice was the recipient, then the bargain may have been personal enough to haunt him. Because when you strip away the palace language, what you're left with is a king under pressure that doesn't always come with threats or shouting, but with something far more dangerous: guilt. There's a debt theory that hangs over this moment like a shadow. The sense that Charles feels he owes protection to a branch of the family that has become a constant liability in public, yet remains family in private. And that conflict is brutal. Public duty demands distance, private blood demands shelter. If Charles believed Beatrice needed security, he may have convinced himself that this was an act of care, a way to fortify her future before the next storm hits the Yorks, before the next headline drags her name into a story she didn't choose. But guilt rarely arrives alone. It often brings regret. The regret theory is quieter, but it cuts deeper. The possibility that a past decision left someone vulnerable, and Charles has carried that weight longer than anyone knows. A promise made and never fulfilled. A protection not granted in time. A moment when the institution chose strategy over compassion, and the cost landed on a younger royal who had no power to fight back. If Charles is trying to correct that now, it explains the urgency. Not the wisdom, just the urgency. Because regret makes people rush. Regret convinces them that speed equals redemption. And then there's the darkest possibility of all, the bargain theory. The idea that this wasn't only about generosity or protection, but about keeping something quiet, a private deal, a fragile compromise, the sort of arrangement that exists because the palace fears daylight more than it fears discomfort. In that kind of scenario, the crown estate isn't a gift, it's currency. A way to buy calm, a way to stabilize loyalty, a way to ensure certain words are never spoken, certain documents never surface, certain conversations never leave the walls. Charles may have believed he was preventing a larger disaster, trading one controlled risk for the avoidance of a catastrophic one. But this is where William's fear becomes devastatingly clear, because William sees compassion turned into leverage as a national crisis waiting to explode. If someone could steer Charles using emotion, using guilt, using family obligation, then the king isn't fully in control. And if the king isn't fully in control, the monarchy is exposed. It becomes vulnerable to internal pressure campaigns, to advisors with agendas, to family factions who know which emotional buttons to press. William isn't just blocking a decision, he's blocking a pathway, one that teaches everyone around them that the crown's boundaries can be moved if you push at the right wound. And once you sense the ticking clock behind the king's decision, the whole story changes shape. The urgency starts to feel less like affection and more like fear. Someone wants this done before a truth breaks, before something leaks, before a looming revelation forces the palace into damage control. That's why the speed matters. That's why the quiet movement matters. That's why William's intervention feels like a last-second interception rather than a disagreement. Because the more you stare at the timing, the more you realize the palace isn't operating on preference, it's operating on countdown. Here's the part the palace will never confirm, but everyone inside will understand. William didn't block Charles to embarrass him. He blocked him because he believed the crown estate gift would detonate something the monarchy couldn't survive. Because when an heir steps in front of a king, it usually means one of two things. The monarch is being misled, or the monarch is about to cross a line that can't be uncrossed. And Beatrice, whether she knew it or not, was standing at the center of that blast. This is containment, in its purest form. William acts to stop a private crisis infecting the core of monarchy, and that suggests he may have learned something sharp enough to justify public defiance. A secret arrangement tied to Beatrice. A fragile compromise that only holds as long as the crown stays consistent and the public stays unaware. Because if that gift goes through, it doesn't just change Beatrice's position, it changes the monarchy's story. It creates a trail that investigators, journalists, and rivals could follow. It gives the public a reason to ask why. And why is the one question the palace cannot always survive. The emotional cost of that realization is brutal. William is forced to accept something the public rarely sees. Love doesn't equal safety inside the institution. Only stability equals safety. Only control equals survival. And when the crown treats people like pieces, the heir learns to move pieces, even when it hurts. William choosing the crown over comfort doesn't make him cold, it makes him trapped. Because if he chooses comfort, he risks collapse. If he chooses stability, he becomes the villain in someone else's private story. That's why the cliffhanger promise hangs in the air like a threat nobody wants to hear fully spoken. If Charles pushes, William will force the truth out. Not as revenge, as containment through exposure. Because sometimes when the system is being pulled into a decision by hidden hands, the only way to break the pressure is to drag it into daylight. And that possibility terrifies everyone. Because daylight doesn't just reveal the truth, it reveals who benefited, who lied, and who tried to use a king's guilt as a lever. And then comes the final twist, Charles's private moment afterward. Not defeat, something more dangerous. The look of a man cornered, not by his son, but by the circumstances that drove him to the edge in the first place. A man who may not be losing control, but who is realizing too late that someone else may have been pulling the strings around him all along. Because if William really is prepared to drag the truth into daylight, then this isn't the end, it's the beginning of a royal civil war, fought with whispers, access, and secrets. And the Crown Estate is only the first battlefield. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.